So we're going to take a look at the Tabernacle of Moses in the Promised Land. Okay, so you'll recall that the Tabernacle of Moses was with the children of Israel in the wilderness during their 40 years of wilderness wanderings. It took about 9 months for the tabernacle to be constructed, along with all the furnishings that went inside of it. And then it was finished, and the tabernacle was the central part of the camping for the children of Israel in the wilderness. So the tabernacle would be in the middle, and then all around would be the encampments for the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, so that's how that worked. Once they were done with their wilderness wanderings, the time came for Joshua to lead them across the Jordan River into the Promised Land. And so we read about that in the book of Joshua, of course. And Joshua went across the Jordan River, and actually it was when the priests carrying the ark stepped into the Jordan that the waters piled up at the northern end of the Jordan River, and the people walked through on dry ground. Once they were in the land of Israel, they had to do something with this tabernacle. They didn't just dispose of it, okay? This was still the place where God was meeting with people, and people would meet with God. So I'm going to be sharing just a little bit of the timeline about the Tabernacle of Moses, and the actual dates. They're loose dates, okay? Because people don't really agree on the exact dates when all these things happened, but they agree that they did happen, and they happened in this order. So once the Israelites were in the Promised Land, the tabernacle was set up in a town called Shiloh. Okay, and Shiloh, I think, means peace or something like that. Shiloh is a location that was sort of centrally located in the land of Israel. Okay, so if we have the Jordan River over here and the Dead Sea down here, and the Mediterranean would be like over here, Shiloh would be like right there. Okay, so Shiloh was the place where the tabernacle was set up. Now, we know that during the time of the judges, when you get to the very end of the time of the judges, you have a judge whose name is Samuel. And Samuel was the little boy who was an answer to his mother Hannah's prayer, and she dedicated her child Samuel to the Lord. And she took him to Shiloh, which is where it says the temple of the Lord was located. Now, it wasn't a temple in the sense of a brick and mortar structure, but it was a temple in the sense that this is where the tabernacle was. And Eli was the high priest, and his two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, were the priests who were there at the time, and they were really awful people. Eli did not restrain his sons, and so God basically told Eli through Samuel and also through another prophet that Eli's priestly line would end. And what happened one day, Eli is told that his priestly line would end basically with him, and he had two sons that were really awful people, that they slept with the women who were outside the gate there. They took the best part of the sacrifices that was supposed to be only for God, and when people put up a fuss, they were mean to them. Anyway, the Philistines were bothering Israel at that time and were getting the upper hand, and somebody got the bright idea to take the Ark of God out of the tabernacle that was here in Shiloh and to bring it into battle, kind of like a good luck charm. And they remembered that, like 300 years prior to that, when Israel was conquering the land, the Ark went before them in their battle against Jericho. So who knows who had the bright idea to do this. And actually, when we read other passages of Scripture, we really understand that God was behind all of this, because God was basically done with the tabernacle at Shiloh. He was finished with the abuses and the idolatry and there was actually foreign idols that were located either in that tabernacle or nearby that were condoned. Okay, they weren't condemned by the priest. So anyway, they took the ark of God out to battle, and Hophni and Phinehas probably carried the ark along with some other people. These were Eli's two sons. And then the unthinkable happened. The Philistines captured the ark. And killed a bunch of the Israelites. So there was a messenger, someone escaped, went back to Shiloh and told Eli, and that his sons were dead, that the Philistines had captured the ark. And when Phinehas's wife, who was pregnant, heard that her father-in-law was dead and that her husband was dead, went into labor and gave birth to a little boy that she named Ichabod, which means the glory has departed. And she was actually a spiritually minded woman, I believe. And she died. She died in childbirth. Ichabod, the glory has departed. That when the ark left Shiloh, when it left the tabernacle, that the glory of God had departed from Israel. So the Philistines capture the ark in a place called Ebenezer, okay, which would be like right about here. And then they take it as spoils of war to one of their cities, Ashdod. Okay, and you'll remember that it's in Ashdod. They brought it into the temple of their god Dagon. And when they came into the temple the next day, they found that their statue of Dagon, their idol, had fallen down before the Ark of the Covenant, and they put him back up again. And then the next day, he'd fallen down, and his head and his hands had broken off. So in addition to that, the people at Ashdod were getting tumors, and there was also a plague of mice, and they wondered what they should do and how to fix this. So they sent the ark to a place called Gath, okay, which bad things were happening to the people at Gath as well, these plagues of tumors and the plagues of mice. So they sent it off to another place called Ekron. So once the cart with the ark arrived in Ekron, but when the ark of God came to Ekron, the people of Ekron cried out, "They have brought around to us the ark of the God of Israel to slay us and our people." And they sent therefore and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines and said, "Send away the ark of the God of Israel and let it return to its own place, that it may not slay us and our people." For there was a deathly panic throughout the whole city, and the hand of God was very heavy there. And the men who did not die were stricken with tumors, and the cry of the city went up to heaven. So the ark was in the land of the Philistines for 7 months. And the Philistines called for the priests, and they said, "What shall we do with the ark of God? Tell us with what we shall send it to its place." And they said, "If you send away the ark of the God of Israel, do not send it empty, but by all means return him with a guilt offering. And then you will be healed, and it will be known to you why his hand does not turn away from you." And so the guilt offering was going to be 5 golden mice and 5 images of their tumors. And then they attached 2 milk cows to a cart. They put the ark on the cart. They put the offering next to the ark. And the milk cows had babies, okay? And what they said was this: if the cart with these 2 milk cows goes straight into the land of Israel, we'll know that God has sent it there. And if not, these cows will turn right around and come back to the babies. And sure enough, the cows went with the ark all the way to the border town of Israel that was called Beth Shemesh. Okay, we'll just Beth Shemesh. Okay, so it was in Beth Shemesh, and the people there, the Israelites there, saw the ark coming, and they were very excited. But somebody happened to look inside of the ark, and they were killed. So they called the priests, the Levites, who were at the next town over, Kiriath Jearim, and they said, "Come and get the ark." So the men of Kiriath Jearim came and took the ark of God and brought it to the house of Abinadab on the hill, and they consecrated his son Eleazar to have charge of the ark of the Lord. And from the day that the ark was lodged at Kiriath Jearim, a long time passed, some 20 years, and all the house of Israel lamented after the Lord. Okay, so then the ark went to Kiriath Jearim, right here. Okay, and it was there for a long time. Okay, over 20 years. Now, remember, Shiloh was where the tabernacle was. Okay, and this is where the ark was, in the tabernacle until it was taken into battle. And then for 7 months, it wandered through these Philistine cities till it ended up in Kiriath Jearim. Okay. The ark never again went back into the tabernacle. The ark never was back in the tabernacle again. And I want to read to you Psalm 78. And you'll understand that God was done with this particular system, done with being used and abused and treated as a good luck charm by the people of Israel. He was done sharing the affections of the people with idols. He was done with that. He was all done. And this is what it says in Psalm 78. We'll start with verse 58. For they provoked him, that is, the Israelites, provoked him to anger with their high places, and they moved him to jealousy with their graven images. When God heard, he was full of wrath, and he utterly rejected Israel, and he forsook his dwelling at Shiloh, the tent where he dwelt among men, and he delivered his power to captivity, his glory to the hand of the foe. Okay, so he went into captivity, basically, with the Philistines taking him. Although he always had the upper hand, nevertheless, they captured the ark. He gave his people over to the sword and vented his wrath on his heritage. Okay, one of the things that happened was the Philistines came in and they utterly destroyed Shiloh, okay, the place where the tabernacle was. And before the tabernacle itself could be destroyed, it was taken to a city called Nob. Okay, but Shiloh was destroyed. And actually, there is an archaeological dig that's done not too far from where they think Shiloh was, and you can see where it was just burned to the ground. And Old Testament prophets talk about the destruction of Shiloh and compare it to when Babylon is going to come in and destroy Jerusalem. Okay, it's a very monumental period of time in Israel's history. So the tabernacle was then moved to Nob, and this is right about the time of David. Now, you'll remember that Saul was always chasing David to kill him. He didn't like David. He was very jealous of him. And one day, he was being chased by Saul, and he goes to Nob, he and his men, and they're hungry. And he asks the priest there if he has any food. And the priest said, "All I have is the showbread." And it wasn't lawful. It wasn't right for anyone who wasn't a priest to eat of the showbread. But the priest said, "Well, as long as you're clean, and you've kept yourself from women, you can go ahead and eat it." So all of David's men and David himself ate from the showbread in the city of Nob. There was one of Saul's guys who happened to be there, and he saw what happened, and he went back and he told Saul. And Saul came in and he killed all the priests there, the priests and the Levites. Okay, and apparently they escaped. There were some that escaped, and they took the tabernacle then to a place called Gibeon. Okay, and that's where it was until the time of Solomon. So what you have here now is you have the tabernacle being in Gibeon. It's there minus the ark. Okay, the priests are still going through all their daily rituals. There's still the table of showbread. They're still lighting the menorah, but the glory has departed. There is no glory anymore. Okay, the God who dwells over the Ark of the Covenant is gone. The Ark itself left. Okay, God said, I'm done with you guys, and I am going to leave this place. Okay, and he never went back into the tabernacle. Okay, so the Ark wandered, okay, until it ended up in Kiriath Jearim. There wasn't very much miles that actually separated Gibeon from Kiriath Jearim, maybe 20 miles at the max, but the Ark never went back. For about, probably about 120 years or so, there was no Ark in the tabernacle. Okay. And the Ark itself was absent from the tabernacle for about, let's see here, about 134 years. Okay, if we place Solomon's temple being built in 960 BC. And David became king over Israel and Judah around 1000 BC. Okay, so this is sort of what happened. Okay, now I think it's extremely interesting that God abandoned his tabernacle and that the priest kept on doing the daily ritual apart from the presence of God being there. Okay, without the presence of God in the tabernacle, what's the point? Okay, what is the point? In any case, that's what happened, because God is going to move on in his prophetic timeline. Remember, this is all an unfolding of spiritual truth and spiritual realities. So the tabernacle, the temple, the ark, all of this is telling a story, and the story is unfolding. God is going to abandon the tabernacle. Okay. Later, God abandons the temple. God abandons these places when there's idolatry, and he's had it up to here with what's going on. And then he moves on to a new phase, and it's actually a greater, more glorious story. And that is what we're going to look at in the next video, where we're going to talk about the Tabernacle of David, which is next up on the list of temples in the Bible. So till the next video, I pray you'll have a very, very blessed day.